with liberty and justice for all.
Just give me a second here.
All right, so we'll start with a recap of the Town Hall Clock Tower Restoration Project, and what a project it was.
Yes, sirree. Good. Well, I'm glad we have an opportunity. I was saying to Ed earlier today, while it's not necessarily a rush, it's a rush in the sense that we're going to be diving into budget pretty soon, so we won't have a lot of the time to really look at some of these types of things. So I thought it was important after this project to get back and give you a little recap of what happened during this project, what was encountered, and give you the full scope of what went on. So with that, we have a presentation that Ed put together, which I'm going to share on the screen here. Do it. And I will move through the presentation and let Ed do the talking for the most part. So
I broke the presentation down into a few parts. We started with existing conditions, just a few aerial shots of what looked bad, but not end of the world. You just go through them until we get to the next section. So you can see that there's a lot of surface rot, a lot of where water would run or settle. And you can see how bad it really was down there.
It's amazing how it didn't look that bad.
Yeah, you can take a look at that.
That looks
pretty bad. There's a few that are pretty bad. That one, yeah.
Yeah, and that looked bad, but wait till you see during construction.
Yeah.
So you can see that. So this is existing interior conditions, just to get a feel for how the inside of the clock tower. But I don't know if anybody's ever been up there. So this is the bell. And you can see how the structure's cracked. Some of the controls, some of the old wood ladders that were in there, and our servicemen had to climb, and an old aluminum ladder. You can see how it's cross braced. Some of the electrical work that needed a little cleaning up.
Is that a bird's nest?
Whoops.
Probably. This is when the mayor wants to put the hammer down.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, we never shut the clock off during the construction. So you have to be in there to watch that thing hit and ring. It's pretty cool.
It's loud, I'm sure.
Excellent. So that's there used to be a flag pole that went through it, and that's the rain gutter, the cap that you'll see in later photos. They used to pull the flag up through that hole and up the pole. Good lightning attractor. That hasn't been in for a long time.
Wow.
Here you can see some additional wiring that was just, I don't know, it's been there for a while. And if you look at that passageway, that is actually over the theater, the roof. So we're not sure the squirrels got in. We know they got in from all the holes in the clock tower. We're not sure if they also ran back and forth in the ceiling. Later on, I don't know if you can really see the pictures later. We sealed the clock tower and we sealed that, just hopefully to keep the critters out. Excellent. So here's some neat. The controls are just amazing. How all the skiers work. And remember, it's been changed to a motor. It used to have a pendulum in it. The pendulum is still up there. We actually secured it, so it's just up there safe. Excellent.
No bottle of whiskey.
No bottle of whiskey. Couldn't find that bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, there's a urban legend about that one.
Yeah, haven't found it yet. Or the guys drank it.
Yeah.
It is so well balanced that the hands on the clock had to be balanced so that it wouldn't put pressure on these gears. You can see the gears going around. That's just a close up of the same gears. So one of the things happened in 2015 is the theater had put a steel beam up to hold rigging and sealed off the access so that only Jim DeCara was.
Jim Englishby.
No, Jim DeCara fits in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jim Englishby could fit it. The only two that could fit in it. So during the project, we decided to take the back louver out and make that a doorway. And this is to show you what we did. So that's opening, taking the louvers out. And it's just some close-ups of the work we did with the access panel. That's it. So actually a pretty neat door. That's before we put the screening on it. And that's the door shut. We added a staircase. We have some handrails in it as well now.
So it's actually safe.
So it's actually safe.
So it's easier to get in there than it had been before.
Yeah, so we have there's an access hatch somewhere else in the building more. broadcast it. So they can go up that access and go walk across the roof and walk into this, and we have some safe ladders. So the scaffolding was an interesting project. It was one would think scaffolding wouldn't be that expensive, but to make the OSHA standards for the platform on the bottom, and then rigging it up, and there's the crane. Just sometimes you have to look down before you realize where you're at.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do. So these are just some slides of some scary stuff. So even on the top of the roof, we were up 5 sections, and you're on top of it.
Yeah, it's
So
a lot taller than you think when you're up there.
So this is the hidden damage. This is where we're going to get into some really, you could not believe what was going on there, including squirrel damage.
The word I used earlier when we were talking about it is disturbing. The pictures that you'll see here are disturbing.
No one could ever imagine what happened to the clock tower over the years. So these beams are only 15 years old. These columns are only 15 years old, and they were primed inside. But you can see how they just disintegrated. My goodness. I mean, and then that little hole we saw up on the first slide. Well, once you peel back, look how bad it really was. It was quite a to-do. The volutes on the sides, on the 4 corners, they were rotted through, and they rotted from the inside out. They didn't rot from surface water. They rotted from dry rotting inside. So here we have some structure that literally just fell apart. You can see even the copper was rusting from behind.
What's interesting is I think the current theory is that after some renovation was done back around 2005, that the way it was kind of sealed is that it almost allowed it to bake from the inside.
Yeah. So what happened is it was a
rot.
marine paint on the outside, so it was almost a hard crust shell. They capped the roof so hot air couldn't leave. And when you have vapor barriers, it took all the moisture from the back, from inside, and pushed it out. And because there was nowhere for the air to go, once hot air goes up and gets stuck in there, it just literally dry rotted the beams. So you'll see
a lot of that, yeah.
So you see how the beams even shrunk. These are big timbers that were holding up the clock tower.
How old are those beams?
These are all 200-year-old beams. I mean, 100-year-old beams.
100.
Meaning from when it was built
120
Yeah,
originally.
120, yeah.
But that's a structural element right there.
Yeah, it's a structural element. I mean,
that's the disturbing part.
yeah, we were planning on a modest renovation where we're just replacing the trim boards here and there, and we'll get into the means and methods in a couple more slides, but it turned into like a full restoration.
It's a good thing the theater wasn't open, right? I mean, can you imagine
So,
something bad happened,
there's one,
Yeah, true.
yeah. I mean, the design still lets water into the theater in heavy rains.
Yeah, I knew that from being on the commission.
Yeah, because it just blows in, and the louvers need to take the air. And it needs to
What I
get
was saying
the
is
sound
if this
out.
failed and something fell in,
Oh, and I
imagine
don't-
doing it with 400 people.
What's
in the
interesting
house,
is it wasn't that far gone that it would fall down, but it was so far gone that you really, if you didn't repair this or you let it go another 5 or 6 years, you could have serious issues. So you can see just the old framing and how it just separated. It was amazing. I mean, the close up of the base of the column, you could put your finger through it. So those, if they fell down, could really kill somebody. So those were like main concerns.
I remember when you came to me to tell me that. That was
Yeah, I don't want to tell you.
that was a tough one.
So this is just some starting of some repair work. You'll see that we use like a gray ice and water shield down the lower pieces. And you'll see we use a very expensive but very interesting, I'll show you with the next slide, maybe I'll start showing them. So you can see, I mean, it just dry rotted from the inside out. Okay, and you can see this is a start of a few repairs. We have a few more coming in the means and methods. So
These are the ones that are.
this is squirrel damage. And we know we found
That's a
remnants of the squirrel, but
That's a beam going
that's a
across.
beam that's this big. And it was eaten that much. And all 4 corners are built the same way, and all 4 corners were eaten. So it wasn't one spot. Yeah. You can see they chewed the other beam right before the post coming up and down. And
They're not even connected.
it's not even connected anymore.
Some powerful teeth.
Yeah,
Exactly.
next line. So you can see this is the other two corners that were, I mean, obliterated.
Sure wasn't a beaver.
So
It was rare. Yeah, exactly.
we thought large rodent because it's such damage, but then we found evidence of a squirrel in it. And you can see the bottom, how the paint
Evidence of a squirrel. He found the carcass.
on the carcass of the squirrel. You can see though on the bottom picture how the paint peeled. The paint was like a plastic sealant over it. It held the moisture in. Excellent.
It's like vinyl.
Yeah. So you can see this is just some further out. It's the outside look of the squirrel damage. And the good beam that they only chewed a little bit out of is the bottom left corner there. That was the beam that was least eaten. It's pretty interesting. I mean,
That looks like a cage, like a, if you have a guinea pig or something.
well, that's where the carcass was found.
They cleaned it up for you.
Yeah. So this is the ice and water shield we use, and this is start replacements. It breathes both ways. So depending on where the heat's coming from, you won't have, moisture can't get in, but air can flow back and forth between the products. So if it's hotter outside and colder inside, we won't get the condensation on the inside. And if it's hotter outside than inside, we won't get the condensation on the materials touching the paper on the other side. The material going, the vertical material is it's called burlwood. It's a cementous board. It has recycled ash in it, and it's got a very good, it has a great shelf life. I think it was 75 years. So we use that where we could, and we use mahogany on the rest of it. So everything is a, for lack of a better word, almost a marine grade wood. Nice little,
Yeah, we'll have more
yeah.
restoration.
So this is the dome where we knew we had to replace the tin, but you can see how the barrel was shot too, and not just a little bit. It was pretty far gone. And you can see how the wood just pulverized. And remember, no water damage was there. That's just dry rot. And this is just dry rot. The one on the left is rodent damage. It started chewing on the beams and trying to get out there. So that's the dome and barrel all rotted. That had to be replaced. It was quite a bit. And you can see the scaffold.
Sorry.
That's fine. You can see that the scaffolding was brought up right to the dome, so it was easy to work for the guys, which also helped in getting it done at a timely fashion. But the barrel was probably 7 or 8 times the amount of labor we had anticipated.
Yeah, because all you saw was the tin from the ground.
Right, and you can't get up there. There's no way to get inside there to inspect it.
So is that wood the new wood or the old wood?
Right now, everything's old.
Everything old. So was that wood also dating from the original construction of the?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That tin is actually dated from the original construction also.
It's been tarred over.
It's been tarred over so many times. And that's where the black came from. We can have that discussion if you really want. Next slides. So this is the inside of the barrel, some of the damage that was seen. Because now we have one side open, we can take pictures inside. So this is the progress. You can see the repairs on the left side. You can see how they work their way around the dome.
With lead
That coat of copper should last a lifetime and then some.
Right. And I had alerted you to the idea that this wasn't going to be tarred over. It wasn't going to be black anymore, which
We couldn't do it.
which the community was probably used to, but it wasn't the right treatment. There wasn't even a paint that could have been
The only
applied
thing
to
you could
this.
do
that
was a
would've
tar
worked.
over it. It was almost
Yeah.
criminal to see that beautiful work covered in tar.
Right, right. So it, may look a little shiny or something.
It'll dull out, but it'll blend in.
Yeah.
But it's what it should have been. It's probably the color it was when it was built.
Well, the Historical Society supported this. Remember we got that
Yeah.
letter?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm. Yeah.
So this is just, you can see the corners, how they were rotted. You can see how little we actually saved, the louvers, the balusters, and some of the corbels. That's it. Even the flashing was gone. We had to replace a lot of flashing. And if you look at all the exposed, it's solid. It's not even a little rot. It's perfect. But as soon as you get behind a board, it's gone. And these are what we call the corbels. These were far worse than we thought. We actually had bee damage in this one. In fact, we had a bee problem, but
Were they still live bees in there?
they went late for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to get into the repair work now. So this is how we rebuilt the corbels. We had them milled. A local craftsman built them.
What are those made of?
That's mahogany. It's turned mahogany. These are the steel drawings for the interior support to re-support the bell. And the next picture hopefully will show the bell. I messed up. There you go.
Well, there's a couple of, there's,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a couple places. So this is some of the steel work we put in to hold up the bell. I'll go back to the other picture for a second. I'm sorry. You can see the band iron is holding up the old pendulum. So we didn't want it just falling around, banging around. So we strapped it to the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
And so here's where we'll get into some just pictures of how they went about starting on the bottom, working their way up. It was a very daunting task because once you start taking up, finding all the rot, where do you start? So we started, after a lot of thought, we just one piece at a time, but knowing we wanted to finish by Thanksgiving, really put a lot of pressure on the beginning to get it going. A lot of debate. The architect was really good to work with. So this is the old molding. This is the knives we had made to make the moldings. These are some of the old samples we sent out to have made. We wound up getting most of the millwork was very difficult to get from the larger mills. So we were able to find a local craftsman who was able to make most of these moldings.
That was,
Were there supply chain issues in any of this stuff?
Yeah, we actually abandoned the supply chain issues and had a local craftsman make all the millwork. So this is the new pieces.
well, there was, the columns were particularly challenging. I know
Columns
there was an issue with delivery on those, but
The columns themselves, we wanted to use a fiberglass spin or a polycast. So there'll be no rot, there'll be no shrinkage, there'll be no problems. And finding them and getting them was almost unachievable. And then we found if we ordered like 2.5 feet longer ones and cut them, they worked.
and they were available.
And they were available.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the crane is lifting up when you saw the crane picture earlier. So this is the splash panels.
You can see they have a workshop up on the roof.
We actually,
It's
yeah,
pretty
behind
interesting.
the skylight, between the skylight and the clock tower, they built a platform and they had basically a wood shop up there. So it's just a little further on how we sealed it to the Hero.
This is protected from the rain. You guys were up there for months.
Would you believe the weather was perfect until we tried to paint it? We maybe had 3 rain days all summer that were non-productive, and they were able to go to their shop in Hastings and make stuff. Like we did have supply chain problems with the burl wood, the vertical side, because that's actually shiplap, so it overlaps. It's not a flat board. We couldn't get when we got to the barrel, we realized the barrel had to be completely replaced. You don't want to patch it. So to do the whole barrel over, we ran short and we were under stress in September. There were probably 160 lineal feet of material short. We wound up making it out of a bigger piece of material we got.
Wow.
So that rain actually, that's when they built that.
Interesting.
So you can see some of the framing we did to repair and to get ready to mount the new materials. Some of the moldings, you can see the moldings we put on. This is a better picture.
That's the side by side, yeah, of the bell.
Yes, so that's the two sides of the bell that were restructured. It's just some details. The lead coated copper flashing that was put around the mid band. There's a piece of it shown and how they bent it and soldered it. That's a duplicate from earlier. It actually was, you go up there on a nice clear day It was actually, you can see the river and see this beautiful handcrafted work. It was actually, we'll use the word inspiring, but it was not inspiring at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and we got some photographs of the completed clock tower here.
Was the bell itself damaged or no?
No, it just, it
Wow.
started leaning.
That looks
Isn't that
great.
gorgeous?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's your finished clock tower.
They did nice.
You can see the door, you can barely see that there's a door in that louver.
Right?
Yeah, that was a smart idea.
There's some close-ups. You'll see those little dots on the,
Below the clock face.
below the clock face, and there's some more lower. What we did is we put tie-in hooks in early, so that in 10 years we can paint it with a skylift, and they can lock it in without damaging the clock tower. So we did a lot of planning to make sure that, because if you don't have that, and then you don't paint it for 10 years and you wait 20, then you're making a mistake.
And then you're putting full
And then
scaffolding
you're
up
putting,
again.
$100,000 scaffolding up for no reason. So that's just another view. Another view. Now this one's interesting because this is, I think the next slide you can see Joe just finished decorating for,
Yeah, you can see
for the
it.
lighting,
Where was that taken from?
from a drone.
A drone.
Yeah.
Look at the bridge in the background.
Yeah,
The nice.
The water looks like Caribbean blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's one more.
I thought this was the
Okay,
last one,
okay.
yeah.
Do you have it at night and lit up? No.
No, no.
Wow. Gotta get one of those.
We didn't, you
Where's
know.
the lighting that lets you light it by color? Like
You can see the little dots on the roof of each side.
Gotcha.
There, you just put it right there. Right there's
Yeah,
one.
I see it, yeah.
So there's four of them, as you know. There's one for each side, basically, but, yeah, so you can see those little dots around there.
And where, do you control that from where?
We have an app.
I figured that.
Larry, you'll
yeah.
teach someone else how to do that.
Yes,
You're not gonna be the
yes,
only
no, it's
one.
not
Keep it
proprietary.
in retirement.
Now, what I didn't understand is he wouldn't go up on the scaffold. He took no
But I-
joy in the woodwork.
But I can play.
I handed him a phone app that he was upset that he couldn't turn on in 3 minutes. And I haven't talked to him since about anything other than the lighting.
Exactly. And listen, I had this observation that any person I talked to about this clock tower, including the reporters and whoever wrote about it, they didn't want to talk about the whole project. They want to talk about the lights.
And all I want to talk about is the woodwork and the process and how we lucked out. But anyway, how
So-
we got done in just a few months.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so the last slide is the budget, which I know, you know, it's not pretty, but I think, let me flip to it. I think when you,
It's not as bad as I thought you were gonna say.
yeah, I think, and that's true when after you see what you saw. But also, the project was done, you know, really on a pretty unique contract. We have a contract, several contracts for trade work. So whether it's general construction, carpentry, plumbing, you know, electrical, that type, we have different contracts. And this project was done using the general contracting carpentry contract. And so essentially it was time and materials, which is a dangerous thing, you know, if you're a homeowner and you don't know what you're doing. Clearly, you know, Ed and others know what they're doing, and they use that contract to their advantage to actually keep this in check. Because if this was a fixed price contract, you know, if the architect did their plans ahead of time, and they didn't see any of that stuff, you know?
Right, then you'd have all the overruns.
Yeah, the overruns would have been out of control, and they probably wouldn't have been done in the time that they got done. And just having the scaffold come down by November and not up through the winter when you really can't work much.
That would have been a waste of money just sitting there.
I mean, that was $8,000 to $10,000 a
But Ed,
month.
I also remember how conscientious you were about spending in terms of getting trucks there to take down, and, you know, we didn't hire trucks, we found them on their off hours, and they came
Yes,
during
yeah.
times that they had breaks as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah, no,
having contracts to hire them for
Yeah.
all day.
yeah, no, the crane was hired as a second load. The scaffolding was put up. Unfortunately, we had a bunch of extras on the scaffold because of, it wasn't
Wasn't stable enough.
First time it went up, I wasn't comfortable with it, and I'm pretty comfortable with things. So they came back and they did quite a bit more work, and then they put the stair tower in because the guys were struggling to get up there fast. We would have lost time every morning with them working just to climb the ladders. So that we built a staircase that went all the way up. The architect was here the next day if we needed him, so we didn't have to wait. Debates went on. We politely debated many things, the paint finishes, the ventilation, and the what we call the hero house building wrap. It was nice to have people that you weren't always right, but they took your opinion, and then we ironed out most of the stuff. We struggled at the very end over the dome. We're forcing ourselves to make it black, which probably was a waste of mental facilities, but faculties. We were convinced it had to be black, but you don't want to paint that material. So it was nice that it worked out.
And we went, ultimately, we went back to the picture from what looks like to be an opening day here, and the dome's not black. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's a black and white picture, so you can't tell what color it is, but it's not black.
But it's not darker than the clock tower.
No. So I think we got the right answer.
And no one's complaining.
No, exactly, as it turns out.
And you've gotten compliments.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, and the historical guy said it's right, so if anyone does complain, just refer them to the historical guy and we're done,
You can see why I almost didn't want to finish reading that email.
Yeah.
Having gone through all this, but it was a great email, so yeah. So anyway, so when I handed this, we were talking about the budget numbers and how it was going to look tonight. I handed it to Ed and I said, maybe we should have spent a few more dollars and got a few more lights, because it would have made a hill of beans difference. Honestly, the lights were $15,000,
Installed. That's all.
Yeah.
And we need lights, so it's not like we could have said no to that, right? So-
No, it was never lit before.
No, it was never lit.
No,
Oh, really?
no, that was the bonus, right?
Yeah, so we made the decision on our own, frankly, to just do it. And
It started out with Christmas lights.
Yeah. Just one thing, we have to compete with the bridge, so I think the lights are necessary.
yeah,
Want
exactly.
more lights? I can do it.
Yeah, we can-
Just give me the yes.
Come to don't ask me if I want more lights. If you see my house at Christmas, you wouldn't want my answer.
So I'm going to send Larry a rendering of. We asked for a sample rendering, and we had to cut way back on it because they had the whole building lit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, listen, that's a possibility in the future, but
Yeah, so it's-
we were worried about, obviously, we were worried about dollars. We already knew we were over, and we didn't know how much exactly because we kept finding things. But I think the lights are a nice feature, and I think everyone is pretty proud of it. I know I am, for sure. So
Great job.
yeah, so tough project, but what I said to you before, and the reason we wanted to talk about this here tonight is that it was an important project. It was an expensive project, and you should know what went into it. Not just just so and we couldn't update you as time was going along. It was just, you could see it was a constant chase to chase down the problems. So, any other questions or?
Unless you're gonna ask for put up a second clock tower up there.
I settle for the lights.
Now that you have experience.
I settle for the lights.
So where does the extra money come from?
We're gonna have to add it to the capital budget, and so you'll be prompted to do that at a point when it's the right time, but at least you'll know the history of it. So, yeah, it's the way it works. All right, so if there's no other questions, let me get out of this here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really
really interesting.
Yeah, no,
I love this
I've
stuff.
heard stories, but it's like when you see pictures, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
Especially for my brand, it doesn't.
it's
Yeah.
funny.
That does look fantastic.
I didn't give Ed my expectations as to how to do this. I even a verbal with a few pictures would have been okay, but he put together quite an extensive presentation. So
Well,
and it needed that, actually,
I
but-
figured a page per 10,000.
over.
Over.
Well, look, the clock tower, the clock tower is our trademark.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
iconic
Yeah.
thing in the village. It's, it's part of our history, and and we've made it that way. We've made choices to highlight that. So
So it's funny when we're
it has to
talking.
be done. It has to be maintained.
When we're working on the firehouse, I had this vision, and it's very hard to communicate to the architect, but he finally got it. There has to be a common area on the second floor that looks up and down Main Street and looks at the clock tower. I think it's like, and it's always been in my head that has to be there. Wait till you see the latest rendition. There's a meeting room in the front of the building, looking up and down Main Street and looking at the clock tower.
Almost like a reviewing stand for a parade, like in a sense.
Juts out.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of, it does. It kind of sits out in front.
Right.
Because you need that part that juts out for their control room so they can see the bays and the
Yeah,
trucks.
the radio room
That's a
was perfect.
standard feature of a firehouse, So it works perfectly with that. But that's another night. All right. So the next item is to circle back on the South Astor Street, mainly South Astor Street, but the South Astor Street, South Buckout Street, kind of traffic circulation and potential for a drop-off location and other capital improvements. As I could easily summarize, the board obviously gave us some instructions last time, which was that we were probably trying to solve a problem that we didn't have, and that's okay. I took that completely constructively, and so we wanted to circle back with an idea. These are not, they're done to Ed's standards, but they're not done by an engineer, but
They're done just enough to give you a presentation of what we're thinking, and cheap enough that if you don't like it, we can throw it away without spending money on it.
right. So, but
Just your time.
yeah, right. Yeah, well,
I get paid very weekly.
that was good. All right. So here's we can.
So, okay, we just go through the pictures. So I just took a few pictures of the existing conditions. Believe it or not, we own almost to the building, maybe a foot off the building.
Really?
Yeah. So once I heard that, it was I was having a field day because it's not inviting down there. You can see it's just an overgrown mess. People look at the footpath from people walking between the trees behind the guardrail.
Well,
We walk the dog there.
And that's why the tree grows so well.
and look, again, this is my pet peeve, and you know how I've been about these crosswalks on Main Street. That crosswalk that's sitting right there goes across the street and into nothing.
Yeah.
There's a guardrail. So,
But if they're
and
not paying, if they're looking at their phone as they're crossing, they're gonna trip over.
I mean, it doesn't, what's the point of
and
it?
there's only one place to
Mrs. Dog Waste.
Yeah, when we get to a few other pictures,
Thank you very much.
there's only one place to drop somebody off where they don't have to climb over the guardrail.
Right,
So looking at,
right, so this is just, I don't want to point that out because it's.
yeah, so I took a few
ridiculous.
pictures looking south, and I took a few pictures looking north. This is across the street, and this is what we're thinking.
So this is a wider view. I'll zoom in a second. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any.
So what I'm proposing is a sidewalk going from all the way across the front of the train station with crosswalks lining up and bump outs similar to the ones we have along Main Street going. If you go back to the other slide for just 1 second.
I'm sorry.
One slide back.
Yeah.
You can see the bump outs on North and South Buckout. So just replicating those down below, which will give you go back to the other slide now.
Yeah,
What
so,
is a bump out?
so right up, you see where the mouse is over here?
Yeah.
These
Oh,
bump, that, well, yeah, it's hard. Hold on a second.
Just the
one
one
across
that
the
way.
street, you can see.
Give me a
The one in front of
Yeah, right
Hudson
here,
Prime.
right here. So right where this arrow is, that's a bump out that we put in all up and down Main Street.
So it goes further out than the
Goes-
curve.
Right, it goes, we call it a curb extension or whatever, a ramp extension.
Ramp extension.
But it's, the intention is to shorten the distance and to increase the visibility for the person trying to cross.
Gotcha.
So that you're beyond, or you're at least closer to being beyond
The
the
parked
edge of the
cars.
cars that
Yeah.
are parked,
And this is just a sketch now, so this, we'll have to iron out the full size. I only went half the size of the spaces for now because traffic seems to cut the corners a whole lot more down here than they do on the other intersections.
Yeah, so we have to,
So we have to get Doug involved a little bit with it.
so that's these here that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So this, this.
So the red is all
Park right here.
proposed, the yellow is being removed, and the blue is existing. So you can see the walk going all the way north to south.
That's this here, the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yep.
And instead of a guardrail, bollards, and I'll show you a picture of what I'm proposing.
So
Just between the crosswalks, I was going to do the bollards. But now you have an opportunity for 7 or 8 cars to pull over an unload and load, where you only have room for one car right now to load and unload. So I thought that was a necessity. The trees are, I don't want to say at the end of their life, but because they're pine trees, they've been topped and they're not in good shape. You can see how they're growing sideways. Unfortunately, though, to get a sidewalk with handicap ramps, there's room to change the lines. This is a quick sketch to just show you what we're thinking. Maybe we can go in and out a little bit to make planting pockets, but you need room for a billboard, maybe. You need room for a bench or two, maybe. Maybe somewhere to soften up the buildings. When you look straight down at the road, you'll see you're going to want opportunities to landscape it, maybe get a landscape architect involved. Maybe small planting pockets would be better than a big planting pocket and big trees.
Would that grant cover this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I mean, I kind of did a little reconnaissance on this with the state, and although it's a different plan than, what we had before, it's still in the same theme of what we were trying to do, which is to create a drop-off or pickup location, or to make it more safe. And, and then improve the
That's the
sidewalks.
entrance, right, to the?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's only one way to get in and out. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Just want to remember, I'm commute every day.
And unfortunately, there's only one real path to drop the person off because of the guardrails.
Right.
And they're ugly now. They've reached their span.
Right, that path is right here. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the,
I like this concept a lot.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
This
I
actually
think-
addresses a problem that exists. That's great.
Exactly. Now, we did, one thing we should also address is that, and I know it came up at the last meeting we had, which was the previous streetscape plan had envisioned a little bit more of like, maybe it was decorative, but a little bit more of a turnaround kind of a thing, like a teardrop at this location. And, Ed kind of looked at it, and the dimensions just don't allow for it. You'd almost have to take some real estate from, the part of the parking lot and some other parking spaces.
on Main Street. There's probably 8 spaces at least.
And it also turned a $350,000+ project into probably closer to $1 million. So,
Over.
yeah, so and I don't think it would have accomplished all that much more, if anything, than this idea,
I think this will brighten up the location and open it up. And it actually might relieve the people how they come down Main Street and just turn. Now that they can park along that whole sidewalk, they'll probably go around North Buckout and come down and park in a line. Right now you get the cars kind of at an angle and kind of not making the turn. I can see it, probably straightening itself out.
Okay, so that's it for here. Then we're
I think
gonna.
there's one more for the ballot,
Oh, that.
I think. Okay,
Oh no, that.
so this is the crosswalk we're proposing.
So-
So there's a couple of these.
Yeah, there's a couple of these. So this is not brick.
This is not brick, this is blacktop stamped. And the white would be painted to match the rest of them on Main Street.
It's actually I think we're gonna find that it's cheaper and an easier process than the brick that we actually used
But
before.
Easier to maintain, cheaper to install, easier to maintain, and easier to replace if it gets damaged. The brick pavers are just not working out. We're having a lot of interesting issues with them, including they get
What is it?
ruined.
Sorry. What does
It's
that look
blacktop
like up
sand.
close?
If you go into Chopped or Ultra Beauty in Dobbs Ferry, these are the sidewalks.
Oh, Rivertown
Okay.
Square.
Rivertown
Right?
Square.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't tell the difference.
I don't know if you can see that any better.
Yeah, that's better. I could see that better.
So of course, our lines would be painted deep, a little wider, and they'd be painted across the pavers as well.
We can do whatever pattern we want.
Right, and we'll do a pattern that matches and then do the epoxy paint over it. But I think the plows will work better, the maintenance will last longer, and Rivertown Square has been there for how long, and this is what they look like.
Right.
So it's, like I said, it's just a longer view. And these are the ballards that were in your streetscape. We'll do something like that, but
Yeah.
I have to take the train tracks out to get that view.
Looks nice, yeah. Look at that view.
Yeah, right. That's funny.
Just get rid of the train track.
And the clock budget is probably the whole budget. The clock.
Wait, where's that taken?
It was the brochure. It was in the
Oh,
It was a
brochure.
brochure.
with the
It
ballards.
was really just to show you what.
I want to show you the ballards, and that was the only picture I can get that had something other than,
And that would replace the guardrail that's there.
exactly.
And function, I mean.
Ours would be a little closer.
Yeah.
These aren't reinforced, but yeah.
Well, we have to find the right, they may look like this or something.
Yeah.
slightly
There's a
different, but-
specification.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
You know, a 5,000-pound vehicle at 40 miles an hour, a pedestrian can't get hurt. That's the design criteria.
Right.
So it may not be exactly this one, or maybe they make these as covers that go over 6-inch pipe. So it may be that we just buy these as covers.
Right.
That's down the road. I just want to show it wasn't going to be a piece of pipe painted orange or yellow.
right, and we,
If we're selling the dream, we got to go all the way.
and we do need the protection, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's just, but it doesn't have to be a guardrail,
Right.
so. All right, so, so moving on, so that's part of the project. And did you have any other questions about that particularly? Because
That
we're
was-
moving on to
No,
a
I
different
like
area.
That's great.
That was a
That's
really
great.
good way to address it.
So this project, these are our sidewalk projects. We still want to do, and there's room in the budget, the original budget, the full budget that you guys have, to do the one in front of the DPW garage and the one.
Here, so this
that
one
one
here.
there, and the one next to the sanitation garage.
And this one here.
And there's no hindrance by landlords, tenants, Metro North to do these. So we want to do these two with that project to start working our way up to Buckout Street and then down Buckout Street.
Right, the other hatched off areas that you see here are part of the larger plan. We don't have that in the current budget for this project.
And it involves a lot of challenges working with the landlord of
Just
the
have
old
this
Trent
private property
building.
there. Yeah.
No, actually, they're more, you can see the old property lines there carefully if you want to trace them. It's more, they're encroaching on village property. Stop, that's not the property line. Stop right there, go down. You see the line, you see that little box line?
Not really.
Behind the mouse.
I
Oh, you don't have it.
don't have a mouse here, yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
So
oh, here, yeah, that's the back of the building.
Yeah, no, it's right there.
Yeah.
Just go right, just a half inch,
Yeah, I
right
see
there.
the
That's the
white line.
property line.
Yeah,
So that parking space and the wall and the stairs going up the exit ramp are all on village property. So, but it's necessary for that property to have those. So, and then if you go in front of GoSu, you'll see that GoSu is going to need a ramp because they can't just, you can't just have steps in a building. So then we have to to get two widths, a 4.5 foot and a 5.5 foot walkway, we have to go into the road at the bottom of that building. And then, of course, when you get towards the top corner of Buckout and South Astor, you got to be back in the same opening because right where Larry's cursor is now, there's a telephone pole and a fire hydrant that we don't want to have to relocate. So,
And that's not even turning the corner and going up. Okay.
right.
right,
I mean, that's a whole
that's a whole other
different-
conversation because that involves work on both sides of South Buckout and cooperation with the landlord as well, the building owner as well.
Right.
So we didn't want to, well, after the debacle of the parking lot that they wanted to build and they walked away from, it's very difficult to talk to them about a sidewalk. So hopefully in the future, we believe we're gonna have a better opportunity to talk with the owners.
So this project only is proposing sidewalks on land that the village owns.
It always is, it's the problem is the improvements of private improvements on village property that.
No, I mean what you're
Yeah.
proposing today.
Yes, but
Yeah.
what's being proposed is all.
Almost everything's proposed on village property.
Yeah.
There's one little corner in front of the bakery, but after that, it's all on
village
village
property.
property.
It's just that the other sections are much more challenging, because of the road width.
So you have
and-
topo problems, you have with the road problems, and you have encroachments, private encroachments on village property. So it's gonna take a lot longer to get there.
Right, but forgetting about the GoSu and Red Barn area and stuff.
Right.
The stuff you're proposing today using the grant is all on village property.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I'm talking about two
Without,
pieces right now,
without really any challenges.
without challenges.
Yeah, that's correct.
And we're actually ready to go with those if you approve them, to engineer them, and we're gonna do it with our local talent, not bid it out so we can save some money.
The sidewalk in front of DPW,
Uh-huh.
is the existing condition now,
That one?
No,
The proposed, the red proposed?
yeah, that one,
Okay,
right? Is that, the existing condition now is where there are trucks often right out there. I mean, I pass them almost every day.
we have to correct that.
Right, so that's gonna now.
Yeah, I
preclude
mean,
them from
there'll be
being able
striping
to-
in front of DPW. We have to correct a lot of stuff.
Okay.
That's a behavior thing. We have to.
It's a behavioral thing, yeah.
Yeah,
I never say anything.
no, that's okay.
Well, we'll put your name on it. We're not taking the blame for it.
I'm sorry, trustee Lonky says you can't park here.
What was the house address?
Yeah, right.
Station Road. Yeah, so that, I mean,
So,
That's a great start, yeah.
so here's the thing, and I know this is anecdotal, but just in the last week, Ed went down there to look over some things.
I went to get filled up the car with gas.
Well, that too. And then I went down there one evening because I had to drop something off. And there were people walking on the road on South Astor Street.
Where the sidewalks were closed.
The south side of South Astor Street, walking on the street headed down to the train station.
Right.
And so while, we're not getting all the way there with this project,
Right,
we
but
know
that
that the
sidewalk
long
is
run,
crucial, yeah.
we want to provide people with a safe way to walk. And that, not coincidentally, is why you got that letter that email that was written by Half Moon North, I think, or South, North, who wrote saying, hey, when you start working on Astor Street, all that stuff is great, but you got to make it safe for us to walk there.
We're working on it.
And so, yeah, so that's our point.
But
Is
also
that,
think about the, sidewalk now at the Arlesion-Hudson station.
Yeah.
It's like it was always there. You
Yep.
never think about it.
Yeah.
And before it was there, people were just walking in the street and causing.
And
them
we
and
were
that's-
commenting on that 2 years after it was built, people were still walking down the street, in the middle of the street.
it took a little bit for behavior to change.
3 years later, nobody's walking the street, they're all using the sidewalk.
Right,
So
it's like it was
it's
always
amazing.
right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So,
And Mercy College did a great job making that inviting. It looks
great,
nice.
yeah.
It's got
That little
safety call
lights
boxes,
are
all
nice,
that.
yeah.
View, right,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah,
view
yeah.
area there.
Yep. Yeah, so that was all that.
Great. It
that was-
really looks great over there.
Yeah,
and as a safety concern, we really don't want people walking around the garbage trucks and the sweepers when they're parked on the side of the street.
Right?
I mean, it's just not a safe spot. So if we can do the crosswalks right, get the ADA right, I think we're gonna have a better, safer path. It's a good start, and you gotta start on one end or the other.
Think Mercy, you want to split it with us?
About the MTA.
Yeah, so this is all on village property also, especially, except for, like I said, the little corner of the bakery.
So we have a rough timeframe? Like,
We want to start this, we have to build the wall on the South Buckout stream first.
the
Then
one, yeah, the one, it's
You
actually
have
in
to
this.
find-
That material's coming in soon.
Yeah, that's over here.
We have some tree grates on Main Street that need to be replaced. And we want to jump into that first thing spring.
so this spring?
Yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
it doesn't need to go out to bid. We obviously have an existing excavation contract. The engineering, whatever engineering has to be done can be done.
Yeah.
And,
And we're probably going to
spring.
field engineer it and not even pay their draftsman to draw it, we'll just field engineer it. I mean, we really want to try to
Get
hone
a bang
in.
for our buck.
Yeah,
So
we've done so many of these, it's not like,
Is the only existing crosswalk across Buckout Street like here?
yeah, so
yes.
the reason.
Why not add one?
It will be. That's all part. He only gave me a day and a half to make these two
Okay.
presentations. I'm gonna tell you right now, and I had a very slow week at planning board last week.
Yeah, right.
I could imagine.
So, it was the worst we ever had, actually.
And and you had all those pictures of dead squirrels.
And then I pull all of that squirrel pictures out we had planned.
Yeah, but the answer is yes, and I think what you're also going to find is that at this, we haven't really formalized this yet, but we have it in our head at this point. One of the challenges, as you know, is that in this area, we had contemplated a enslaved African memorial right in here. The problem is that, this area was pretty well damaged during Ida. We're going to rebuild and whatnot, but there needs to eventually be some sort of a bypass.
A little lower.
Yeah, some sort of a bypass
Right there.
right in, and it's going to end up being right in this area, so that the pressure isn't put over here in this area. The water is going to flow more directly down here and then out to the Hudson. Now, that's a big project. It's not something that we're expecting to start anytime soon, but
Be underground, right?
yeah, oh yeah. But it's gonna be big because of where it is. It's at the bottom, it's at the end of the brook, you know, and the volume is huge. So the problem is we can't just relocate, or we can't locate a memorial anywhere really in here, because then you're gonna have to cut right through it. So I think one of the things that we're looking at, and we're gonna try to formalize our thoughts eventually.
We'll redline some areas for you.
But I think what we're looking at is in this lower right-hand corner, closer to the corner of Station Road. We're looking at doing a sort of a bump out, like those curb extensions that we showed you on Main Street. Because there is room, you know, it's a pretty wide road at that point. And there's also an area where it flattens out before it gets to the brook, and doesn't seem to be impacted by floodwaters, you know, it's kind of up from the stream. So I think there's an opportunity there to use that location as our location that we focus on for the memorial. If you do that, then you're gonna make the crossing across South Buckout Street shorter, which is safer in the long run. And I think you're gonna have a much more logical and usable crosswalk there than you would on the one you just pointed out. So you see, so it's hard to, maybe I could, well, here, if you see the arrow, so the crosswalk, let's say,
Would be just a little further down the road. from
yeah,
there.
might be somewhere in this vicinity, just a little bit south maybe from here. And it would be a shortened crosswalk
You
because
put the
both,
cursor on the parking space line.
yeah,
So across the street from where you were. So the bump out would eliminate two spaces at the very top corner. So when you round, they'd be protected by this new plaza, we'll call it.
right. And so the crossing would be here. So the logical path for someone going from either Station Road or Buckout down to the train station would be across this crosswalk and not necessarily a crosswalk here.
Yeah,
Well, that
except
doesn't mean that we wouldn't.
Right, except that crosswalk is the end of what's gonna be a one-way street, so there's only traffic coming in one direction.
True, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it wouldn't be used. I'm just saying that I think there's gonna be multiple paths of travel.
Yeah, we envision two crosswalks crossing Astor Street there.
So,
They're gonna say
I'll
the
walk out.
sidewalk is on the other side, so.
Yeah, so
Right.
because we also want anyone who's,
Yeah.
anybody that's going north, we want them to cross over there too, so we don't.
Right.
So for the project that's covered by the grant, we'll call this stage one. It's in front of the train station. It's by the parking lot on the left.
Yep.
It's in front of the DPW and that little corner by Buckout.
No, not the corner by Buckout yet.
Just those two.
Right.
just, yeah,
And then by Gosu and Redbourne is for the next stage that we don't have funded yet.
Yes,
Gotcha.
right.
Okay.
and that we need
we need.
coordination and
Yes, I
cooperation,
understand.
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just want, so we're really today, there's three parts, but there's in front of the train station, by the parking lot, and in front of the DPW.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's great, and all of that can be covered by the expenses which we've already anticipated.
Yeah, and we think there's a little bit of money left over to do the landscaping and some ID work, directional signs or.
Like a wayfaring station.
And then,
He ruled out the checkerboard,
Do we,
Oh,
do we
yeah.
have,
stone, but
do we have the money for the grant already? It's like in our,
so that we have approved, it's a reimbursement grant, so we have approved a $200,000 grant, and then the board appropriated an additional $200,000 for a total $400,000. I think we're a little less than that. We're trying to stay a little less because we've spent a little bit of money on this so far.
and we want to leave some room for the directional signs and the accessories on the benches
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
billboard, maybe an electronic billboard.
Whatever
you
we
guys
decide.
can, when you drive down, if you can look at it and see, how do we screen the building without plants? Maybe there's something you can put in front of it, like a billboard for the village.
Right.
It's just don't tell Joe.
It's actually, it's a great project. I mean, it's really is, and we've talked about how it's kind of the gateway to Irvington from one direction, and
Right.
it really is. I think it's going to look so much better down there than
Yeah.
a couple scraggly trees.
And even the place on the corner of where the library is, that's going to be a pretty wide, pretty spacious island,
Yeah.
It's going to be bumped out into Main Street, it's going to be bumped out into South Astor Street. I don't want to say it's a plaza, but it's a nice, comfortable area.
I
you
thought
know?
a kiosk
Say
in
a
the middle
band
of
could
that
set up their own
We'd
would
home.
be
always-
better than over on the train station side.
Yeah.
Because you got the historical building against it.
Yeah.
And that is what was contemplated by the
Okay.
streetscape plan did contemplate a kiosk of some sort at that corner, I guess that would be the southeast corner of that intersection. And not directly in front of the train station as people, you know, it would be right there. So,
This is great. Good, thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
all right. Thanks, Ed.
No, you get my bill.
Let's see, let me get this moving here.
keep trying to solve existing problems.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, it's good. Listen, it was helpful to get, as much as I joke around about it, it was helpful to get the feedback.
When Larry Lonke gave us your concerns, and he gave us his concerns, it was actually very easy to understand
Yeah.
where you really wanted to be.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Well, and the board in total was
Yeah.
pretty clear about
Yeah.
about not liking what we did before, so it was fine.
And where are we with one-way streets on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I don't think there's anything that is really, that's really preventing us from implementing that. So that's something where, you know, I need to do, and I need to talk with the police department, a little research on exactly how to do that, what the best practice is for doing. I've never done that before. So, you know, there should be some sort of maybe a variable message display there for a period of time, or some sort of signage that's clear about, thanks, Ed, about the future one way.
I thought
You know.
before we changed it, we were gonna get input from the community.
Yeah, no, and we have to do that as well, but I mean, there's nothing else stopping us from, you know, like, we don't have to wait for these improvements or anything like that. Yeah. Yep. So we'll get that moving in, you know, in parallel to all this. Okay. So with that,
Hi, Marianne.
all right,
A lot of people can hear us tonight anyway.
I think so. You can both hear us. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's pretty
All right.
clear.
Good, okay.
Yeah, it's way better than last meeting. Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you connect the wires properly. So.
You can play the squirrels for that too, Larry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I could. Okay, so when last we talked about this, the board had expressed some interest in looking at doing some sort of a traffic study on Broadway. The extent to which we didn't know, the nature of the study we didn't know. So we set about to meet with a traffic consultant from AKRF, Marissa Tarallo, who we've spoken with before, but we wanted to sit down and really get a sense of, you know, what could be done, what should be done, what data would be the best data to get back, so that the village can then look at the data, try to analyze it, and determine if there's anything that can be done to improve the traffic situation on Broadway as a whole. Obviously, you know, North Broadway certainly was more of the focus before, but I think we need to look at a bigger stretch is the conclusion that we came to. So with that, in front of you and attached to the agenda was a draft proposal. It's a proposal to do what's called an existing conditions operational study. And really that's to essentially take inventory of what your current traffic situation is, and particularly study the signalized intersections. In this proposal, it's from Sunnyside Lane to the north, along Broadway down to Dow's Lane on the south. Although I do have a request from, actually it's Ed, that we maybe go one more intersection further to West Clinton, because he feels that that'll be helpful in any future discussions, especially as it relates to the area around the Trent Building and the flow through Station Road and West Clinton, that it might be helpful to have that. So we can, you know, certainly fine tune that, but that's, as of now, this is what this proposal covers.
Marissa had indicated that adding an intersection was not a big pricey matter.
I think that's right, yeah. So that this is, it's a good suggestion, and certainly we should look
talked
at it.
about it at the meeting as a possibility, so it's not like crazy, so
Right.
if Ed says it'll be useful, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he thinks it could be, yeah. So, and data's data, you know, you never know when you're gonna need it. So
Right, and that's the last traffic light before the end of the village, anyway.
Yeah, next one is Langdon Avenue, which I'm not sure. Yeah, there's probably a fair amount of data from Mercy College on that one. Mary Ann, right? Is that,
Yeah.
they probably do, yeah, they have certain counts they have to do, so.
Yeah.
So we know a lot about that intersection. So the proposal really covers the collection of data at various key times, and we highlighted key times, which I think are pretty obvious, that, you know, there's a morning peak hour time, which is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., an afternoon peak, which is 2 to 4 in the afternoon, obviously corresponding with the activities at the school, and a PM evening rush hour, 4 to 6, as the periods where they would focus on taking and analyzing data. The other couple of parts to this is that they also recommended to study whether particular intersections would warrant, and that's the word they use in the proposal, would warrant a traffic signal. So we looked at the corridor that we just described from Sunnyside to Dow's, or from Sunnyside to West Clinton. And if you really go through the roads, on the south side of south of Main Street, so on South Broadway, there's really only one unsignalized intersection, and that's Sycamore Lane, which is a right turn only. I don't think there's going to be anyone that's going to make a case for it, and they're too close to the other intersections to have a signal there. On the north side of Main Street, North Broadway, you know, certainly Riverview is a challenging road. There's no question about that. The traffic consultant felt that that's way too close to the Heritage Hill light to ever be considered as a possibility. As you go further north, really the only candidate that was considered was Strawberry Lane. Just as, you know, it's probably far enough from Heritage Hill, and we already know that you know, it's a challenging road to get in and out of. DOT told us so. So it's probably worth looking at that to see if that warrants a traffic signal. Good information to have nonetheless. And then there's another analysis which is a little more subtle. It relates to it's doing a gap analysis, and the gap analysis is analyzing a road where there are significant delays getting out of the side road onto the main road, and analyzing the traffic for, you know, how long it would take to have a gap to be able to get out of those roads. So it's, again, statistically done. And the road that was suggested for that was Riverview, to see, you know, what the timing of getting out of that road is. We thought that was a helpful piece of information to have. And that's really Marianne, I don't know if there's anything else to add to that, but that's the summary of the proposal that they put together.
The only thing that I'd add is, well, one, to clarify that it's not, other than, you know, suggesting maybe, you know, an intersection needs a traffic light, but they're not coming up for the most part with suggestions and anything to improve the traffic, but just to assess the existing conditions, unless it's obvious to them that maybe adjusting the timing of some of the lights would be helpful. And that seemed to be part of this proposal.
Right. Yeah,
It said that.
yeah. So one of the things that they'll do is basically a freedom of information request. They'll request the timing information from the New York State DOT. And one of their first clues is that if the timing hasn't been adjusted in many years, there may be an opportunity for a tweak to that timing that can help the situation, again, based upon the data that they get back. If the timing has been kept and continually adjusted, there's probably less of an opportunity, but they won't know that until they get the information. Larry, Larry Lonke, you mentioned that maybe a gap analysis should be looked at on Fargo Lane as well. So I can add that to.
Right, I was thinking at least one of the, I would think Fargo, but
Yeah.
maybe Meadowbrook or whatever,
Yeah, I mean,
one
that-
of those exits.
There was a reason she was dismissive of those. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I mean, Meadowbrook's a pretty short road, but let me circle back and find out if in fact there's a reason why they were left out, or
Mhm.
or if, or if it could be done. So I'll ask that question. So,
Larry, what's the street that's right before Heritage on the other side, off the other side of Broadway, the south side of Broadway? I think it's a private road that
it is,
almost
Yeah,
faces
that's-
Riverview Road.
I believe it faces Heritage Hill. It's at the signalized intersection for Heritage Hill.
It's after. So it almost faces, like if you're on Riverview Road and you're gonna turn, and you're actually almost looking at the car opposite on the road that's also gonna turn.
Oh, I think that's a private driveway, yeah.
That is a private road, okay.
I think that's it's a common driveway for 41 North
That's right.
Broadway, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not even
Road.
A road.
yeah, it's not even.
It's not a road, okay.
It's a road, it's not a road.
Right.
Exactly. It's only one road.
So the one very keen observation made by the board in our kind of our back and forth discussions was that the traffic patterns are considerably different right now because of the construction and road closures on East Sunnyside Lane. So when I reviewed that with Marissa, she agreed 100% that this work really can't be done while that project's going on. She said if there was a window of 3 or 4 days where there was no construction and no closures, they could probably do the counts in time if it was a scheduled thing. But
We just had it over Christmas.
yeah, but it would have been over Christmas, which
Right.
doesn't give you the right
Yeah, I
volumes
was gonna
either.
say that's.
So, and so what I said to her is that I mean, unless it's an extended period of time where they really shut things down for several weeks during a regular time of year, a couple of days, the patterns aren't going to shift that quickly. People are creatures of habit, and so you're not going to go back to normal traffic patterns, overnight.
Yeah.
So unless there's an opportunity, I think, and I hope it doesn't happen, to be honest with you, I hope they just keep going and get that work done, that you're really looking at late spring to early summer for that construction to be complete.
Well, it can't be over summer because of the school.
And then you hit summer, so you really can't do these counts. So you probably are looking at the fall of '23.
But I'm thinking perhaps maybe they should do the section south of Main Street on Broadway, because if the next part of that project is Station Road, then that may get changed and affected. And maybe, and that's far enough away from the affected intersection right now that they might be able to do it.
Well, if it's driving traffic up Harriman.
It's tough though, yeah,
It may
because
actually be-
one of the, I mean, I'll give you my anecdotal experience. When I come in from the Sawmill Parkway, I don't get off at 287 and come in on North Broadway. I go down to Cyrusfield Road now because I stay away from the entire corridor,
Right,
because
right, so that's a change in usage.
yeah. So and I'm not doing it just because of me. I'm just
Right.
saying I think there are bigger changes. It's such a big detour that even people that live on the east side of the construction, so let's say Pennybridge Manor, if they want to go to Dow's Lane School, their fastest way is to go out to the Sawmill, down to Ashford Avenue and back up, or down to Cyrusfield Road and back up.
Yeah, it's a tough turn.
And so now you've altered a
Right.
pretty wide, including South Broadway, you've now altered, you know what I mean? So it's I don't think there's not really an opportunity to do anything. That was the gist of the conversation I had with her. She does think that she can pull some of the traffic light timing information and start analyzing that at least to see if there might be an opportunity. It would probably have to be confirmed with the final data, but she could start working on that, but there's really not a heck of a lot that could be done until really the fall. So anyway, I mean, based on that, if you have any other questions, I can get clarifications from the traffic consultant. But at this point, Because of the delay with East Sunnyside Lane, there's probably not much for you to do, but I wanted to have an opportunity to at least report this back to you so that you knew that it's out there, it's in the works, and, you know, we can fine tune this, and then eventually you'll be asked to approve it.
Another
Go
reason to
forward.
make sure we get clean data is the whole Route 9 thing. So there's
Yeah.
that. So this state, as you all know, are in the process of they've hired an engineer to do this whole study of Route 9 from the bridge all the way down to Hastings. And we're going to want to have our interests protected and all of that, and data will help us do that. And I wouldn't want to have data that the state would then say, well, you took that at the wrong time and this isn't accurate or whatever. So,
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so no, there's a lot of good reasons for collecting this data. Anytime you can have this baseline data, it's going to be a help. Just have to do it at the right time.
Yeah, agree.
Right.
I think we're all on board that there is a traffic issue, and now we want to put numbers on it.
Yeah, see if there's a way to address it.
Stories about not being able to turn off at Riverview.
Yeah,
and how great would it be if she can change the timing?
Yeah.
Maybe tweak it a little bit, yeah.
and she'll be able to, you know, one of the things is she'll be able to quantify what those changes would yield. If there are positive changes, she can quantify what that is so that we have an idea that, you know, from the moment you started this process, you improved it by X% or not. I mean, we'll see, but you know, you have an idea of what you've done.
Yeah, she'll have 2 harsh judges on Riverview Road checking.
Exactly. All right.
Great.
Any other questions with that? So nothing, we're not going to put anything in front of you in terms of approving a contract. We can do that apparently at our leisure. But we'll get things fine tuned here, and then we can just get it.
And she can do the light timing thing without a contract.
Yeah, well, I mean, she can certainly file, I think she already probably filed the FOIL
Okay.
request, but we'll get this in place once everything's fine tuned.
It's not like it's a company we don't deal with.
Right, we don't want to pay more, though. We want to make sure that the terms stay the same, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. If there's anything else, I will make a motion to adjourn if I can have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank
Good night.
you, Zoomers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you, Arlene? You're in a car, right?
I'm in a car. I got stuck at work, so I wasn't going to make it all the way into Irvington.
So why did
So-
you stop in a car?
Oh, because my husband came to the city to get me, so now I'm just in the car, and he
Oh, you,
ran
oh,
somewhere
you
else.
driving?
Oh, no, I was the passenger.
No, I know you're not driving.
Yes, yeah, no, driving. Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's it. So their picture was really smooth. Oh, okay. Interesting.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, earlier I was driving the whole time, but I've been stopped for a while.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.